crossing the United States to his native South Africa. Nolan continues to push barriers and inspire people to inspire themselves. And you could be next. Join Nolan's 7-day online groundbreaking program called Obstacles Make Me Stronger, aimed at teaching you how to overcome any obstacles you may face, break barriers, be innovative, and take control of your life. For more information, check out Obstacles Make Me Stronger, now on Udemy.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan. My name is Nolan Pillay, and I am your host for today. I have a journey, you have a journey, but how many of us share our inspirational journeys to inspire others through life? Our journeys are authentic, and we know you will resonate with it. But please remember to like and share our content on YouTube, because this allows us to grow our audience and bring more valuable content to you, like the content that we bring in today with Daniel. Now, today it's our pleasure and honor to welcome Daniel to our show, Inspirational Journeys Through Life. In 2008, the real estate crash took Daniel out and he lost everything. He turned to drinking and had nothing. He lost the house, the cars, the toys, the money, and worst of all, custody of his children. After he got sober, he started back into business. He jumped back into the mortgage business and had massive financial success. Still searching for his purpose, he then became a coach where he trained realtors on lead gen and sales. And yet, even after he had achieved all of his goals and had all of the money he wanted, he had the house, the cars, the toys, the family, he was still unfulfilled. He felt empty. This is when God stepped in. He told Daniel that his purpose was much bigger than what he was doing, and that if he had the courage to listen to his direct guidance, he would be massively emotionally fulfilled and finally be living his true calling. And I think from what I've read, Daniel is living his true calling now as well. So this is where Godspeed with Daniel and this powerful app that connects people and puts people in direct conversation with God, called the God Walk app, was born. And we're going to get into that a little bit later as well. Now he lives a life of true fulfillment, a life most men could only dream of. Not only having the money, the body, the health, the love of his life, but also waking up every day, talking with God and living his true purpose, making a massive impact on the world. Once again, Daniel, welcome to Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan. It's such an honor and a privilege to have you with us today as well. So I'm looking forward to a very interesting conversation. Would you mind just sharing a bit?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I've always been able to make money, and it's been something that I was 13 years old and had my own business, and I've always found a way to build business and to have success in that area. And it wasn't that I was massively unhappy, but at the same time, when you have a bunch of money and then all of a sudden you feel empty and it's not enough, there's a problem. And luckily, I was able to find my true calling and my true purpose. And I know why I'm here on earth. So I get to talk and share, what that journey looked like to the listeners on your show here, Nolan. So I'm really excited to be able to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of us go about life without understanding what we really meant to do or what our purpose is. But then again, the more I think about this topic, a lot of people don't know how to find their purpose. And this is where you'll be very instrumental in teaching people as well, how to find their real calling, their real purpose. So I'm really grateful that you are here. So let's go back to where it really started, Daniel. How did you really get started in your business?
Yeah, I was 13 years old. I was in Ohio. And my father was paying me $1 a week to cut the grass. And we had a riding lawnmower. It was a huge lawn. It was like child labor. He was breaking laws. He should have paid me more. but I was enjoying it. And I was I realized that if I mowed the grass twice a week, I'd get double the money. So I started doing that. And then I realized if I got more, lawns to cut, then I can make more money doing that too. So I went out and I started talking to the neighbors, and I kind of spread out, and I would drive the riding lawnmower to their house. I would cut their grass. I would knock on their door. They'd pay me, and they'd pay me like $20, $30. And this is back when I'm 13 years old. So that kind of money was a lot for a 13-year-old. And I remember coming back to my house, like having loads of cash. And as like I built that, I bought my first car, and I kind of carried that along. Like I went to high school and college and really focused on baseball. But then after that, I got into the mortgage business, and I made a lot of money in the mortgage business too. And it was just a calling that I had, that was to build business and to expand and to look at other ways of making money. And it was quite incredible the way that I did that.
So just to touch a little on what you just said, right? Being a 13-year-old entrepreneur as well, and I hope at one stage you told your dad, you're not going to cut his lawn for $1. I'm getting $20 somewhere else.
Well, no, he let me get started in the business. So I kind of felt, I had to take care of the house,
No, absolutely.
He got started in the business because I used the riding lawnmower that he started me with.
Oh. So do you think that starting up so early, understanding what money is all about, understanding the value of money, is a good thing? Because what I'm trying to get at is, normally if a person starts off early and they only chase is after money, we tend to lose ourselves in the process. Do you believe this?
Yeah, I wasn't losing. No, it depends on to what extent. My values were set. Like I wasn't like most of my friends that had the same bicycle that I had, or the same car that I had. Like their parents bought it for them. Like I didn't feel justified. I didn't feel like my parents owed me a car, or my parents owed me a bicycle, or my parents owed me, a birthday party or whatever. Like I created it on my own. So the mindset very early on was like, I can go out and I can create what I want in my life. Like when I'm young, like I'm a young teenager, and I'm doing things on my own. I think it was one of the greatest things that could have ever happened to me, because I started learning that like creating things and being my own boss and starting my own business was very valuable. Like you got to realize I was doing all the marketing. Like I would go to Kinko's. Now it's called FedEx Kinko's in the United States, but back then it was just Kinko's. And I would go and I would literally have flyers copied, and I would do it on half sheets, so then I could cut the sheets in half. So like my cost was like half as much to market, and I would put them in mailboxes, and then the mail lady would like yell at me, "You're not allowed to use the mailboxes." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm 13. Like it's okay." And she would look at me and be like, "Well, I'm not going to really arrest you." And I'm like, "I know you're not." So like I would market myself, and then I would use the home phone number, and my mom would be my receptionist. It's like I had an organization, I would get home from playing, and my mom would say, "Hey, you've got messages, and I booked you some appointments. You need to go to this house, and they need to go to this house." So I jump on my bike with my friends, and I'd be bidding jobs in between playing. Like it was the greatest thing I could have ever done when I was that age.
So much of inspiration in just what you've just said as well. But most importantly, you had your values set from that age of 13. Well, actually, the values would have been there prior to 13 years, but you carried your values with you. And you realized that, yes, we do have materialistic stuff out there as well, but it's good to also have the basic stuff. You don't have to have the Porsche when you can drive, just something simple or more economical as well. So, to everyone listening out there, the values are so important, because up till today, we should be living up to our values. It will eventually drive the purpose that we are here for as well. So, Daniel, tell us a bit more about what happened in 2008.
Yeah. So after college, after baseball, I'm in the mortgage business, and I had some massive success. I was a millionaire. 2006, 2007, we were making hundreds of thousands of dollars in a month. And I owned my own mortgage company. I had a team. And I mean, I lived in a neighborhood where the neighbors would come up and say, "Hey, we want to meet your parents. We want to welcome you guys into the neighborhood." And I'm like, "No, this is my house." And they're like, I was young. I was like 25, 26. And they didn't really know what to think because I didn't belong there. I had, 12 I had 12 motorcycles and a bunch of cars. Like I had more stuff than what you can imagine. And my lifestyle was amazing. And everything was great. And then for those of you that don't know, March of 2008, the real estate crash happened. And it happened very, very, quickly and aggressively in Las Vegas, Nevada. That was one of the worst spots in the whole U.S. And that's where I lived. That's where I had my operation. That's where I was making all my money. We went from making, more money than I knew what to spend on, and to nothing overnight. And I crashed and I burned. Like I lost everything. Everything went into foreclosure, into bankruptcy. Everything got repoed. The mother of my children, she left. She took the kids. I mean, it was horrible. I turned to drinking, like heavily. And I remember being in a rental a couple of months after, I got foreclosed on and had to leave the house that I owned. And I was evicted. I was being evicted out of the rental because I couldn't even pay that because all I was doing was drinking. And this is not like I don't want anyone to think like, oh, poor Daniel. Like, no, I was not a victim. Like, I want to make sure that I'm clear. Like, I just chose not to figure it out. Like, there was people still making money in the real estate market, but I didn't do it. I didn't figure it out. I didn't spend the time to find out where I could keep things going. And so it was bad. I had to call my dad and I'm like, Dad, I need a place to stay. And he's like, son, I thought you were rich. And I was like, I was last month. Like, it's all gone. And I'm like, I need a ride. My cell phone's about to be turned off and I'm hungry. Here's my address. Pick me up. And he's like, you can come back to the house and stay, but you got to stay on the couch because the bedroom is where I make a living. Like, you can't stay in the spare bedroom that we have at the house. Mm-hmm. That's my office. And I said, Dad, I'll take whatever. Like, I'm about to live under a bridge. And so I lived in my dad's house on his couch in the living room for 2 years.
So that's a lot that you have to actually go through. You're living the life, you've got everything, and then here comes the crash, and everything just goes crumbling down. I think more so your wife left with the kids. I mean, that must have been most painful for you as well, right? Just to see your kids go with her.
Yeah. We weren't married. First off, we weren't married, but she was the mother of my children. We lived together. Her leaving and taking the kids was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. And I say that with so much gratitude. I say that now, like, because I can look back and I can see like what happened. That relationship was toxic. It was not right. And me being away from the children and definitely away from her was a good thing for me to figure out what I needed to figure out and go down that journey that I needed to go through. Like, literally for 2 years, me being on my dad's couch, I was drinking from morning until night. And I needed to go through that because something happened one morning that changed my life forever. And I don't believe it would have happened the way that it did unless I went through what I went through, exactly the way that I went through it. So it was rough at the time. Yeah. And at the same time, I'm like, thank you. Thank you for taking the kids. Thank you for leaving. Thank you for everything that you did, because I'm the man that I am today as a result of actions that happened after that conversation.
Wow. So well said. And I like the acknowledgement and accountability from your side as well, Daniel, because the more I think about it as well, if the kids were around and you were in this state that you were in back then, I could just imagine how it must have been for them emotionally. Would have been draining for them as well. I know yeah. Drinking and things like that, we think it doesn't affect other people, but it actually does. And we don't realize how much it affects us as well. I mean, I used to drink a lot as well. So I know, I've cut down a lot, and I had to cut down because of circumstances changing in my life. So how did you go about quitting drinking? Because, I mean, if you've been on your dad's couch for 2 years, waking up in the morning waking up basically with alcohol or drunk and going to sleep drunk. That would have been a tough call to switch from that, right? And quit completely.
Yeah, you're right. That's when the moment of my life like changed. That's when it happened. It was July 7th, 2010. I will never forget this morning. I woke up, I was walking towards the kitchen in the liquor cabinet because that's what I did. I would go to pour a drink. Like, that's where I get started. It's right when I wake up. But instead of going into the kitchen, in the liquor cabinet, I passed the kitchen and I opened the door and I went in the backyard. And I just kind of went for a little walk in the backyard, my dad's backyard. And like, I'm not like a backyard going for a walk in the morning kind of guy. I wasn't sober, but I had 6 hours of sleep where I wasn't drinking yet is where the state of mind was for me. And I hear this voice as I'm in the backyard, son, you're done drinking. Don't drink again. I look to my left. I look to my right. I'm like, is that my dad? Like, is he in the back? I'm like, no. He's like, son. I'm like, oh my, this is God. God is speaking to me, like speaking directly to me. Like, and I realized this, even though I'm still kind of foggy and like still kind of waking up, and I'm like, wow. So I start talking back to God and I'm like, God, how am I going to stop drinking? He's like, you're done. Don't drink again. Like, he's unwavering. This voice that I hear inside my head is the most booming, authoritative, like bassy voice I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like, I really want to stop. But you've seen me. Like, it's been years I've been at my dad's house drinking all day. I was drinking even when I was having success in the mortgage business before everything crashed. Like, when I'd make a bunch of money, I'd celebrate because I closed a bunch of deals. Yeah. When I didn't close a bunch of deals, but I still made a bunch of money, I would get all pissed off and drink then too. And then when I crashed and nothing was around, like, I would drink all day long because I didn't want to feel anything. So I'm like reasoning with God for a second. I'm like, I've been trying to stop for years. He's like, you're done. Don't drink again. And I remember like this feeling of like authority and certainty and calm all in the same breath. It was very interesting. And so I just made a commitment right there in the backyard. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to drink again. So I walk into the house and I pass the liquor cabinet. I pass the kitchen. I sit on the couch. And for the next few days, me and my dad just kind of built a new relationship. I was 30 years old at the time. And we were just hanging out, watching TV, talking, enjoying each other. And my mind was like, the fog was lifting and the poison was like leaving my body. And for like 5 days that happened. And then like 5 or 6 days into not drinking and just hanging out and sitting on the couch and like doing nothing, like literally like physically repairing myself by just not putting more poison in. Like, that's literally what was happening in my body. I had an idea. I'm like, I've got to like get my stuff together. Like, I got to make some money. Like, I got to see my kids. I got to get a car. I got to get my own place. Like, I got to feed myself. Like, I got to get back into this. So as a result of that, like I started back into business, and I've never looked back since that day.
Wow. So that was motivation enough. One was the voice that came telling you or directing you, you know what, stop drinking. You're done. Don't ever drink again. That was powerful because, you know, apart from it installing some kind of authority or fear in you as well, the main point is you listened to it. You just didn't ignore it.
Yeah.
You listened to that advice that you got, and you realize that it is from higher purpose or from above, be it God, be it whoever it is, but somebody sent that message directly to you, and you had to take action on that as well. In those 5 days that you were having this close-up conversation with your dad and getting to know each other much better at that point, were you tempted at all just to have a glass or a beer or anything?
No, no. Like, no, since July 7, 2010. I haven't wanted to drink, use drugs, think about it. Like I'm all, not always, but I'm in situations where people are drinking. I go out to dinner at a nice place. Like there's people drinking all over the place. Or, I go out to a gathering or a whatever, or an event. People are drinking. Like they can drink and that's okay. Like it doesn't bother me. And it was literally because of this decision and this connection that I have now with God that that's just something that I don't do. A lot of other people do. I don't. It's been amazing.
That's beautiful. Well done, and congratulations on that step as well. Because again, listen to that voice and take action. Because a lot of people don't tend to listen. They kind of, I call them, they still sleeping during the day or walking and sleeping because they're not consciously aware of what's going on. So hence they're not awoke most of the time. So you actually took that action, and now you went back into the real estate on your second round, right? Second time in. How successful were you this time around?
Yeah. Well, there was a quick step before that. I got into a network marketing company and made some money, but it was like not the money that I was looking for. And I'm sober. I'm being led by God. I learned a lot of things in the network marketing company, and I had some success. I made some money. I got some things back, but yeah, I was guided and led back into the mortgage business because that's what I knew. And that's what I was really good at. So I'm listening to God. I'm having a communication with God. I have a weekly or a couple of times a week kind of connection with God that was powerful. And it wasn't like it is today, but it was good. And it was like building a foundation of trust. Like he would tell me, or he would guide me to go to a certain mortgage company to work for, or to market a certain way, or to make sales a certain way. And I was listening. And I started completely over. I had nothing. I just had like experience from my last experience with the mortgage business and knowledge, but I didn't really even have contacts. I lost everything. So I started over. I rebuilt my mortgage career, and I had so much success that the owner or the president of the mortgage company I was working with at the time, he said, "You're now an owner. You're a part owner of the company. You're going to have a stake in profit sharing. I'm going to give you your own team, your own building. You can have whatever you want because you can't go anywhere. Like I'm counting on you. I opened up 2 warehouse lines as a result of your revenue." So I said, great. So I get this building. I run the operation the way that I want. I've got 5 full-time employees. Look, I've got like major expenses, but at the same time, like I'm making a lot of money, way more than I did back when it was 2006 and 7. And so I remember this is where everything changed. Like it changed almost as quickly as that day that I had the conversation of stop drinking from God. It was 5:30 in the morning. It was the 7th day of the month again, like convenient. I don't know why, but the 7th day of the month is like the day that things like happened for me. It was many years later. It wasn't 2010, but 7th day of the month. Now I have my own building. It's a huge building, and I'm there. It's like 5:30 in the morning. No one's there yet. But I'm there and I'm looking at my bank accounts, and I just noticed that the 6th day, the day before, there was $131,000 deposited into my account. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But this is early. I'm wondering where this came from. And so I'm tracking the money, and I'm like, oh, this was for commissions for the first 6 days of the month. I already got paid $131,000 for 6 days worth of commissions. I'm like, okay. I'm looking at the pipeline. I'm like, I'm going to make $500,000 this month. Like, this is exciting. And then I felt myself selling myself to feel good. And there was something going on. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I have all the cars that I could ever drive. I have all the bikes, motorcycles. I have the house. The kids are in my life. Everyone's happy. My family's happy. Like, I've got more money than I've ever had. I'm going to make the most money I've ever made in 1 month. Like, I look up into the ceiling tiles and I'm like, God, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel like this? He comes into my head again, and he says in that same booming voice, you're done. You're not going to close mortgages anymore. And I'm very shocked. I'm like, I think he's kind of joking almost, I'm like, God, I'm kind of good at this thing. Like, look at what I just got paid. Like I'm helping people. Like families are moving in to their dream homes as a result of me. And I'm getting paid a lot of money. And I've been sober. I'm being led by you. Like I did everything you told me to do. Like you led me in the marketing, you led me in the sales, you led me in the fulfillment. My systems are the best in the business. They're the best. Like, what do you mean? So now I'm like pacing, in my bullpen area. I had telemarketers that worked for me at the time too, and they weren't there yet. So it was like an open area, and I'm just like walking, pacing around the cubicles. Like, God, how am I going to I have employees, I have telemarketers, I've got full-time employees, I've got all this stuff. Like I got a lease, I've got all this money that I have to pay, like I'm making a lot of money, but I have like a lot of expenses. When you make hundreds of thousands of dollars in a month, like your lifestyle definitely raises very quickly.
True.
And so I've got all of this responsibility, Nolan, and I'm like, God, how am I going to, like, I couldn't even make words because I was so shocked with this conversation, because I knew that like he doesn't waver. Like I cannot negotiate with God at all. And I know that whatever he says is going to happen. And I know he's never given me bad advice. I know it's going to be better for me, but I'm trying to like figure out the end game. Like how is it going to be better? How am I going to replace this? Like what's going on? And all he would give me was, you're done. You're not going to close mortgages anymore. And then he gave me something that really inspired me. He said, I made you for way more than just being a mortgage guy. I made you to not just affect one family at a time, but your impact is going to be much greater. And I'm like, okay, I like this, but like, how does that look? He wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
And then people started walking into their offices and cubicles, and the conversation was over at that point for that morning.
Gee whiz. So, interesting enough, right? So God wanted you to surrender to him, basically, him or her, whichever we call it. But by just surrendering, it was allowing you to find out what you needed to do as well. Far too often, especially when you got that amount of money, one is very scared to get rid of, or not get rid of the money. One is scared to move away from making millions of dollars, etc., and just go and listen to what God is advising or what God is directing you to do. But you had the courage to do this. So firstly,
yeah,
you have the courage. How did you pluck up the courage to do this? Pluck up the courage to trust what God was saying to you. Because here's the thing, Daniel, a lot of people worry about the end goal all the time, right? They worry about, how am I going to make $1 million? They're not focusing on, why do I want to make $1 million? The key thing. How did you pluck up the courage to say, okay, I'm going to stop listening to, I'm going to stop listening to you, and I'm going to make money, and I'm going to focus on what you're guiding me to do. That took a lot.
Yeah. Well, it did. It was scary. I didn't just surrender like instantly. There's a little bit more to the story that I'll share with you in a moment. But one thing that I did know is that I've stacked this evidence of all the advice that God's given me, like it works. When he told me to stop drinking, my life got abundantly better. And I wasn't able to stop drinking until I listened. Getting back in the mortgage business was such a great idea. I would have never thought of that. I would have never done that. God guided me to do that. Not knowing like where I was going to work and all this other stuff, like God guided me which company to work for. God guided me on which marketing, and God guided me on how to set up. Like, so I had this evidence that like when God intervenes and tells me to do something, like it's always the right advice. It's always amazing advice. And my life always gets better as a result of listening. So like, I know I'm going to have to listen, and I know that I'm done, but I'm not really like on board yet completely. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, okay, well, like in the next 6 months or something, or the next year, like I'll kind of phase out of this thing. That's what I was thinking in my head. Right. And so my employees start coming into the office, and the conversation, ends with me and God that morning. I get a cup of coffee. I go back into my desk, into my office, and I sit there and I'm like, wow, that was interesting. That was definitely interesting, and I'm sitting there and I look at my calendar and I've got appointments. I've got calls to make. They're scheduled. I had a call center. I had telemarketers that would literally set appointments for me on 15-minute blocks all day long. I look at my calendar. I've got a full day. I'm like, well, I'm going to make these calls because I have appointments. So I started making calls. These are sales calls. These are sales calls to get people to refinance or for people to purchase using me in my team. And so I'm calling, and what was really odd was like everyone was saying no. It wasn't working. And I usually bring in 2 to 5 new deals every single day, while we're closing 2 to 5 old deals every single day. Like it's a revolving system that I had of a lot of revenue. I would literally I would talk to the individuals and I would get them to trust me, and then my team would close the deal. And I would just talk to people and new people every single day. That's all I did. And everyone's saying, no, your rates are too high. Your fees are too high. We're going to go with someone else. I had someone even say, we don't trust you. I'm like,
wow,
what? Like people don't say that to me at all. So I go home. I felt like I got whooped, like I got jumped, I go home and I'm like, man, I wake up the next day and I just charge again. And I've got all these calls to make. I make the calls. Nothing happens. Everyone's saying no, like nothing was working right. I'm like, all right, this is really bad. 2 days in a row. So the third day I wake up, I show up to the office and same thing happens. People are canceling. People aren't closing. I'm not getting new deals. I look at my calendar. I have a chiropractor appointment. I have a standing chiropractor appointment weekly that I get to go. And I go to the same chiropractor. He pushes on me and does some things. And at that time, I would do it all the time. It would give me energy. I'm not hurt. It just would make me feel more vibrant. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the waiting room at the chiropractor's office. I was so excited to leave the office because it was a heavy couple of days. And God jumps in and speaks to me again in the waiting room with that same booming voice. He says, delete your database. I'm like, what? He goes, delete your database. I told you you were done. You're not going to close mortgages anymore. Delete your database. And I'm whispering with God. I'm like, God, what are you talking about? Because I'm in the waiting room. Yeah. People are going to look at me like I'm crazy. But I'm not. It's God. He's talking to me and I'm talking with him. It's nothing crazy about it at all. Yeah. And I'm like, delete my database. Just so you know, Nolan, and everyone else is listening, there's 22 years of my blood, sweat, and tears in this database. I have all of my closed clients, my new clients, my marketing, my paid data, hundreds of thousands of records in this database over 22 years. And God wants me to delete it. Now, my tech was so high level at that point because I was in the business for so long. I literally had access to delete my database from my cell phone in the waiting room. And I did. Deleted it. Went in the trash folder, delete. Then I started really freaking out. I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I deleted it. It was very obvious that God intervened for the last 2.5 days and wouldn't let me close anything. I put that together finally. I didn't put it together when I was running and gunning and trying to make sales for those 2.5 days. But when I'm sitting in that chiropractor's office, I knew that was connected. I knew that he wasn't going to allow me to close anything else. And now he's telling me to delete my database. I better listen. So I listened. And then they call me back into the back room to get my adjustment. I'm laying on the table I'm erect. And the guy is pushing on me. He's like, you have a lot of stress in your life. I'm like, yeah. You think? If you only knew what happened in your waiting room. And he's like, oh, tell me more. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So that was kind of a different kind of adjustment, if you can imagine.
Wow. So valid enough, right? Because you tended not to listen to what God was telling you, but you didn't realize that you will be forced to listen eventually. and stop making those phone calls and getting rid of that database as well. So, well, again, you listen to that, to the voice from above. And so after listening to this voice, right, what was next for you? Because I know you spoke about Godspeed app as well, right? And I'm sure this is who you are now and what your purpose has become. So maybe let's start with
Yeah.
what your purpose currently in life.
Yeah. Well, when I left the chiropractor's office, I went back to the office, and because that's what I knew. And God told me to just go home, play with my kids, and go for a walk with them the next morning. So I did. Went home, played with the kids, woke up early. I went to the park instead of the office. I hung out with God, and I literally started walking with God.
Wow.
And this is how everything kind of happened for me. I was walking with God, and I'm like, all right, God, what's next? And he would strategically tell me like how to unwind everything that I was wound in. Like he told me how to get out of the commercial lease. He told me how to take care of all of my employees so they would be whole and they would be able to take care of their families. He told me how to unwind every single thing that I was involved in. And then one morning as I'm walking, and I'm walking with him every single morning, I'm getting there with like the sun isn't even up yet. And it's just me and God, and we're walking in the park. And there was a morning when I asked God, I said, God, okay, like I'm out of the mortgage business. I'm out of the lease. The employees are taken care of. Like everything is good. Like everything's gone and I'm completely open. Like I knew like there was like an opening that had to happen. Like I had to be available for what God wanted me to do next in my life.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him, okay, God, what's my financial purpose? What's the direction? What's the focus? Like, what did you make me? What did you build me to be? And he told me, he said, you're going to change the world for me. You're going to win this battle of good versus evil for me. There is a battle going on that you don't even really know about there on earth. You need to connect as many men as you can to me directly. You know how to connect with me. You need to teach men how to connect with me. The moment that men are walking with me and connected with me, they're going to get the truth directly from me. They're not going to get propaganda. They're not going to get the media that's wrong. They're not going to get any of that crap that is all agenda based down there. They're going to get the real truth. They're going to know how to lead their families. They're going to know how to show up in their businesses. They're going to become whole men as a result of listening and being guided by me, because they're going to get the truth. And I like almost like fell over when I hear this. Like you don't usually go for a walk and then God tell you you're going to change the world and this is how you're going to do it. That was a conversation, Nolan.
Beautiful. You know, Daniel, when people that are listening, and they may wonder, you know, well, this guy must be talking nonsense, you know, that he's talking to God and stuff. But little do people realize we all have that ability within us as well. You just have to tap.
Yes.
And it's a real
Yep.
thing. You know, I can so resonate with you, Daniel. It must have been 1993, 94. I was working as a packer and a sweeper in a factory as well. And I was earning like very minimum wage at the time. And I was grateful for it because I could put it back into my household. But I also had this voice, and the voice was, Nolan, is this where you want to be for the rest of your life? And immediately my answer was no. And then I started taking action towards getting out from that situation that I was in and becoming who I am today. So, you know, to people out there that are listening, this is real. You just have to know and understand that it's real, and you have to listen. If you don't listen to anything, then what are we here for? You have to ask yourself these questions as well. So, you know, Dan, it's such an intriguing story as well, so inspiring for men out there, especially. And I'm so glad you mentioned men as well, because we as men, sometimes we still have this thinking that we can save the world alone. We still have this thinking that we should be the only providers in our family. You know, it's all about ego and masculine energy, etc. But the moment we start going in the direction that you've gone in, we're now becoming that real, genuine people or authentic person that we want to become as well. So is your purpose now just focusing on men, directing men, or are you open to...
Yes.
Is it men, right?
Men are going to change the world. Women are not going to change the world. Men are going to change the world. Men are going to lead their families. Every single woman out there, wants a man to take care of her.
Yeah.
Every single woman out there wants a man to show up as a man and as a head of the household, as a man that's going to direct their family and take their family to where they need to go. And they need to be, every single woman wants a man that's led by God.
Yeah.
They do, whether they're going to admit that or not. Because here's the thing. I know, like, when I'm at home with my wife and I lead my wife, she knows I'm inspired by God. She knows that I'm not making decisions that I think are going to work. She knows that God is connected to me, and she knows that I'm being led, and I'm leading my family and my kids and my wife with God's inspiration. And that's literally what this is about. So this is like what was put on my heart, was that connecting these men directly to God is going to give God the opportunity. I'm assembling an army of men connected to God, directly connected to God. And the first step in this army that these men are going to be a part of, and that we're assembling right now, is them becoming whole in their business, in their body and health, in their relationships. And the way they're becoming whole is, we developed an app, God and I, and the app is called the God Walk app. And inside the God Walk app, it's exactly what you need to be able to connect with God. You literally can have a walk with God and your cell phone. You can read the questions, you can give the answers, and then you're going to ask questions directly to God, and then God is going to speak into you, and he's going to give you the answers. When you have your business, your body, and your relationships whole and powerful, then God is going to speak into your heart and tell you your true purpose, the true reason why you're here on earth. And when you find out what that is, you're going to be completely fulfilled, and you're going to be able to work for God to definitely be the beacon, to be the person that leads your family, your community, your state, your country, your province, wherever it is, but lead your area for the good, so we can win. There's a battle, and there's a lot of evil going on right now. And the more men that are connected to God, the faster we're going to win this battle, and the faster we're going to take earth back over for God and for good.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to actually connect you to. I belong to a men's group which is part of the US and Europe and a bit of Africa as well. I would love to connect you in that. We'll have a chat about that and see how we can connect you into that men's group as well. I know all the advice, and with the app as well, it's going to really help them as well. So, Daniel, thank you so much for really inspiring us today. I'm so grateful that you made the time to be on the show as well, and for inspiring our audience as well. Any last words, key tips for the audience out there? So that's one. And the second thing is, how can people get in touch with you? More so men. How can they get in contact with you? I will be sharing the details as well, but yeah.
Yeah. So first thing is, you can get started with talking with God right now. Every single person, men and women, can talk with God. The men specifically should be talking with God on a daily basis. How you start is you just go for a walk and you talk with God. It's that simple. There's no rules. Just talk with God. You have to believe the foundational belief that there is a God, or there is something bigger than you. If you can believe that, then you qualify to actually get the coaching and the inspiration from God. But you have to believe that there's something bigger than you. So you're not going for a walk with yourself. You're going for a walk with the creator of the universe. That's the first requirement. So going for a walk is the most powerful thing. You guys can do that right now, and your life will change exponentially. The second thing is, for the men that are being called and they're like, I want access to this app. I want to be a part of Men of God. I want to be a part of this army. I want to be whole in my business. I want to be whole in my body and health. I want to be whole with my relationships and leading my family and showing up, as a husband and as a father. And I want to know my true purpose. I want to work with God. I want to be a part of the army. If you're feeling called and you want more information on that, you can submit your application to be considered. We don't let everyone in on the army. This is not like a normal thing, just so you know. You have to go through a process to be accepted. And if you feel called to get more information about the Men of God, the God Walk app, and all of the opportunities that we have for these men, you can go to godspeedwithdaniel.com. Again, Godspeed straighttalkwithnolan.com. And then you just click on the Men of God tab and you can submit your application. You will get me directly on the phone. I will interview you. You can interview me. We'll find out if you're a fit. And if you're a fit, then we'll be a part of Men of God together, and you can be a part of the brotherhood, and you're literally going to become whole in your body, in your business, in your relationships. And most importantly, you're going to find out what your true purpose is through that relationship that you have in the brotherhood and the relationship you have with God. And your life is never going to be the same. So submit your application, and then we'll talk and see if we're fit.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Really appreciate it. And to the audience listening out there as well, we're going to put in Daniel's contact details and the link to the site as well, godspeedwithdaniel.com, so you can access it very easily as well. Very sound advice. Talk to God every single day. If you're not doing it now, you should start. And, when you are listening to this call, take the initiative to follow Daniel's advice and actually do it as well. So once again, thank you for listening to our show, Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan. This content is going to be on YouTube, so please share your comments at the bottom, and Daniel will get to answer them for you as well. It's going to be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all over the show. We will be sharing it, so be sure to share it with as many people as possible, because everybody needs God in their life as well. Everybody needs to learn how to talk to God. So share it with friends, family, whoever you believe that needs it. And Daniel rightfully said, if you look at the world now, the world needs a lot of healing. The world needs a lot of us to start taking charge and leading the world as well. So Daniel, thank you once again. We really appreciate your time, and we really appreciate you. Thank you for coming on our show today.
Thanks for having me, Nolan.
It's our pleasure.